Olmos Park sits like a quiet secret in the middle of San Antonio, a small municipality of tree-lined streets and manicured lawns, the kind of place where porch lights burn late and neighbors know the sound of each other's cars pulling into driveways. It is old money layered over new, a community built on the comfort of routine, book clubs, real estate closings, Sunday dinners. Well, this very evening on October 6th, 2024, nothing about the street outside one particular home suggested that routine was about to break apart. Suzanne Simpson, a 51-year-old luxury real estate agent and mother of 4, had spent that Sunday the way she spent many of her weekends, moving between the small, necessary tasks of a full life, a life that by every outward measure looked settled, even enviable. She had been married to Brad Simpson for 22 years. They had built a home, raised a family, and cultivated the kind of social standing that made them recognizable faces in the exclusive circles of Alamy Heights. That night, the couple attended a party at the Argyle, a private club known for its old-world elegance, the kind of venue where San Antonio's affluent gather beneath chandeliers and hedge-lined patios. Suzanne and Brad Simpson attended the party together, and witnesses reported that a verbal altercation took place between them there. To the people around them, it may have looked like nothing more than the ordinary friction of a long marriage. A sharp word, a tense exchange, the kind of thing easily lost in the noise of a crowded room. No one at that party could have known they were witnessing the opening scene of what would become one of the most closely watched missing person cases in recent Texas history. Just hours later, the tension that had simmered at the club followed the couple home. A neighbor on East Olmos Drive later reported hearing the couple fighting outside their house. What that neighbor described was not a muffled argument behind closed doors, but something far more physical, far more alarming. A struggle witnessed in real time, Suzanne breaking free and running, and Brad following after her, until the neighbor lost sight of them, both in the darkness. Then came the detail that would anchor the entire case in the public imagination. The neighbor reported hearing screams coming from a wooded area across the street from his home. After that, silence. No further sounds, no sign of Suzanne walking back inside, no headlights pulling away. Nothing but the ordinary quiet of a residential street at night. A quiet that gave no indication of what, if anything, had just happened in the dark tree line beyond the road. It would be easy, in hindsight, to treat that scream as the moment everything was decided. But investigations rarely work that way. A scream in the dark is a data point, not a verdict. It tells you that something happened. It does not tell you what, or to whom, or why. And so what followed was not an immediate arrest, not a swift resolution, but the slow, methodical grind of a missing person investigation that would stretch across weeks, then months, then years, without ever producing the one piece of evidence that could answer the central question at the heart of it all, which was, where is Suzanne Simpson? In the days after October 6th, Suzanne's absence began to register not as a mystery, but as an alarm. She did not miss her real estate appointments without explanation. She did not go silent on her phone for long stretches. Friends who tried to reach her got nothing. Her family, growing increasingly uneasy, began asking the question that soon reached law enforcement. When had anyone actually seen her last? The answer kept circling back to that Sunday night, to the party, to the argument outside the house, to the sound the neighbor described. Investigators would come to believe Suzanne was last seen alive the night of October 6th after leaving the party at the Argyle. Everything after that point existed in a fog, theories, fragments, and an absence that grew heavier with every day that passed. Well, the police response, once it began, moved with visible urgency. Bexar County Police Chief Fidel Villegas acknowledged publicly, just days after Suzanne was reported missing, that there had been tension within the family. It was a carefully worded admission, the kind investigators make when they know more than they can yet say, when the physical evidence has not caught up to the suspicion already forming in their minds. That suspicion, notably, did not take long to center on one person. Guess what? Just days after Suzanne was reported missing, Brad Simpson was arrested, though not yet for murder. His first charges were for assault and unlawful restraint, both classified as family violence misdemeanors. This was just a beginning, not an ending. Hence, it was a legal foothold that allowed investigators to hold him while they built towards something larger, if the evidence supported it. What the evidence appeared to show, according to the documents that would later surface in affidavits and court filings, was a husband whose behavior in the hours and days following his wife's disappearance did not match the profile of a man simply worried about a missing spouse. Surveillance footage placed Brad Simpson's truck at a Home Depot in Bourne, Texas, the very next morning, October 7th, where, according to the affidavit, he purchased quick-rete cement, trash bags, bleach, and insect repellent. Taken individually, each of those items has 100 innocent explanations. Cement is bought for driveways and fence posts. Bleach is bought for laundry. Insect repellent is bought before any outdoor errand in Texas. But taken together, purchased within hours of his wife, vanishing under violent circumstances, investigators viewed the combination differently, as the kind of shopping list that appears again and again in cases where someone is trying to erase the evidence of a body rather than build something in a yard. Before making that purchase, Brad reportedly approached a stranger in the parking lot and asked for directions to the nearest dump. His cell phone, notably, appeared to be turned off at the time. It is a small, almost mundane detail. A man asking a stranger for directions, but in the architecture of a criminal investigation, it becomes something else entirely. Why would a man need directions to a dump the morning after his wife disappeared? Why would his phone, a device that had presumably tracked his movements for years, go dark at that exact moment? These were questions that came up. Well, investigators do not need every question answered to build a case. They need a pattern, and the pattern, piece by piece, was beginning to form. Later that same morning, surveillance cameras at a gas station captured Brad's truck again, but this time the white trash bags he had purchased were no longer visible. The blue tarp, the firewood rack, and the trash can remained in the truck bed, but the bags themselves were gone. For investigators piecing together a timeline from fragments of footage, this single discrepancy carried enormous weight. Something had been removed from that truck between the Home Depot parking lot and the gas station. What that something was, and where it went, remains one of the unanswered questions that has haunted this case since its earliest days. The search for Suzanne herself began almost immediately and expanded with a scope that reflected the seriousness with which investigators were treating the case. Search teams combed through areas in Bourne and Bandera and extended their operation to a landfill in East Bezar County. The search radius grew to include not only the wooded area near the Simpson home, but also a ranch in Bandera County, cadaver dogs, forensic teams, drone footage sweeping over dense brush and open fields, all of it mobilized in the hope of finding something, anything, that could confirm what investigators increasingly suspected but could not yet prove. And yet, despite the scale of the effort, despite months of searching across multiple counties, no trace of Suzanne Simpson's body has ever been recovered. It is the central, unresolved fact of this entire case. A woman is gone, a husband stands accused, and the physical proof of what happened to her remains, as of this recording, still missing. In the absence of a body, investigators leaned heavily on forensic science, and it was here that the case took one of its most chilling turns. Family members told local news outlets that law enforcement informed them Suzanne's DNA had been found on a motorized saw. That discovery came the same week Brad Simpson was formally indicted, and the indictment itself alleged he had attempted to conceal a reciprocating saw. A tool, investigators noted, is typically small and handheld, not the kind of equipment one would expect to need explaining away. The implication, embedded in that piece of evidence, is one the narration does not need to spell out for the viewer to understand its weight. A saw is not evidence of a fight. It is not evidence of an argument that spiraled out of control in the heat of the moment. If the DNA link holds up under the scrutiny of trial, it points towards something far more deliberate, far more disturbing than the version of events that began with two people shouting outside their home. The formal murder charge came over a month after Suzanne vanished. On November 7th, 2024, Bexar County officials confirmed that Brad Simpson had been charged with murder in his wife's case. Combined with his earlier charges, prohibited weapons possession, evidence tampering, unlawful restraint, and bodily injury to a family member, his bond was set at $5 million. It was, by any measure, an extraordinary figure, one that reflected both the severity of the allegations and the flight risk investigators believed he posed. The arrest affidavit stated that authorities believed Brad had intentionally and knowingly caused the death of Suzanne on or about that Sunday night in October. Language like that, precise and clinical, is the language of a case built carefully over weeks. Not a rushed accusation, but the product of an investigation that had, by that point, accumulated enough circumstantial weight to bring the most serious charge in the Texas Penal Code. Perhaps the most haunting piece of testimony in the entire case did not come from a neighbor or a surveillance camera, but from Suzanne herself, spoken months before she disappeared. According to an affidavit, Suzanne had confided in her personal banker sometime around August of 2024 that if she ever went missing, they should look for her in a lake. It is the kind of detail that, once heard, is impossible to unhear. A woman, weeks before her death, seemingly anticipating the shape of her own disappearance. Was it a dark joke? The kind of gallows humor people sometimes use to voice a fear they don't fully believe. Was it a genuine premonition born from real tension in her marriage, a quiet acknowledgement to a trusted confidant that something in her life had become dangerous? The affidavit does not resolve that ambiguity, and neither can this narration. What it does confirm is that no evidence has been found indicating that Suzanne is still alive. 2 months after that conversation with her banker, she was gone. The investigation did not stop at Brad Simpson. On October 21st, his business partner, James Cotter, was taken into custody, accused of helping Brad hide an illegal firearm, although he has since been released on bond. Cotter was later indicted as well. The same month, Brad was formally arraigned and entered his plea of not guilty. The presence of a second person in the legal proceedings raises its own set of questions about who else may have known what happened that October night and what role, if any, they played in the hours and days that followed. Questions the narration will return to, because they remain, like so much of this case, only partially answered